All right, we are back with another reaction podcast here. Been a couple weeks for us, Rye.
Yeah, we're back, ready to roll. Fran's getting married this week.
2
Congratulations,
days.
man.
Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, 2 days, man. It's exciting stuff. So we're recording a couple podcasts today because I'm going to be out for a couple weeks. So first one up, we are just sticking with our reaction videos. We know people like them. We got a couple good ones today. So with that, let's dive right into the first one.
It is nearly impossible to create wealth through traditional investing. Why? Because you have literally no control over the markets. Could you react to what's happening in the markets? Yes, but you don't actually have any control. And the reality is the vast majority of individuals that try to time the market end up making mistakes and get busted out of the market. So what are the probabilities that it can actually lead to the creation of real wealth? Don't take this from me. Harvard did an entire study on this. They found that of all of the individuals in the United States that earn at least $5 million per year, 94% of them own at least one business. And the 6% that don't are highly paid executives or presidents of publicly traded corporations, and their compensation is primarily paid in stock. So therefore, they are business owners too. So when it comes to probabilities for wealth creation, I'm all in on business ownership.
All right. A couple things I really like there, a couple things I did not like. So, Ryan, let me start with asking you a question here. What would you classify as quote unquote real wealth?
Well, if you're making $5 million a year, I would certainly classify that as someone who has the ability to generate real wealth. So that's the marker we're using. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
My marker for that is a lot lower, and it's really based on the person, right? So we look at financial goals as really, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And what are the things that you want to have? And it doesn't take making $5 million a year to be wealthy.
Absolutely. And, where I'm kind of going with this is, what is real wealth? Like he's talking like you can't generate real wealth. Well, what does that mean? For someone, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, like what's the number? That answer is going to vary greatly from person to person, depending on what their specific situation is, what their specific circumstances are. You could have a guy who is $2 million living in Iowa, and that's a vastly different situation than a guy with $2 million living in Manhattan.
No doubt.
Based on your specific situation, having a certain amount of wealth could mean very different things. So what I want to dive into a couple of the key points that he makes here. And I want to preface it with this. I really love Edward Collins. I think he does a fantastic job. He does a lot of really good financial education stuff. We follow a lot of his stuff. And, if you're interested in more of these videos that we do, he's a great guy that does this stuff on a consistent basis. I just think he slightly missed the ball on this one. So let's go point by point. There's 3 major points where you have literally no control over markets. The vast majority of individuals who try to time the markets make mistakes. And then the Harvard study that of all the individuals who make $5 million per year, 94% are business owners and the others are highly compensated executives who are essentially business owners in a different way. So point number 1, we don't have any control over markets. Absolutely correct here. We don't. No one does. However, we do have decades of historical data, and what we can do is we use that to our advantage to make smart and educated decisions regarding where to park our money to have the best possible chance for growth and outpacing inflation. Point number 2, vast majority of individuals who try to time the markets make mistakes. He is 100% correct here as well. I can't time the markets. You can't time the markets. Warren Buffett says you can't try to time the markets. Don't trick yourself into thinking you are the special person who is going to be able to time markets. I always tweet out that Buzz Lightyear meme where it's like, I'm the chosen one. And it like stretches out to like the store where there's like 1,000 of them there. If you get something right one time, if you were someone who was like, I knew the markets were going to crash in COVID, or I knew they were going to run up when we started printing money, it's like, yes, you might have gotten lucky once, but to be able to do that and to think you're going to correctly do that on a consistent 2, 3, 5, 10, 30-year basis is just silly to think.
Yeah.
The best traders in the world try to win 51% of the time. I promise you are not going to win any more than that, thinking that you are going to outsmart and outpace the markets.
Yeah, it's silly to think that, the best and large institutions of the world spend 100% of their time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week to try just to get a little bit better, to think that you're going to do that at night after work or on the weekends and you're going to do that over decades. It's silly to think that.
I promise your Reddit thread is not going to yield more.
You are not roaring kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. You can and will lose if you do this. So just don't. Point number 3 is where I really have an issue overall, though. Harvard study claiming that real wealth is individuals who make $5 million per year. Yes, I understand if you have a study, you need to have some sort of metric. Otherwise, we're just, going off this arbitrary number. However, like we were saying before, everything in personal finance is personal, right? Everything needs to be specific to your situation. And I think just, making $5 million a year out of this arbitrary real wealth number is silly. And here's why. Let's dive into some real statistics regarding millionaires in America. The top 5 careers for millionaires: engineer, CPA, teacher, manager, attorney. 80% of millionaires receive no inheritance at all. So 80% are all self-made. 80% of millionaires got there accrediting through investing in their 401k just at work. And 75% of millionaires said that regular, consistent investing over long periods of time were what led them to success. So yes, traditional investing can absolutely lead to real wealth over time. Obviously, it takes discipline, consistency, a lot of time to build that up. But building wealth is not just for these business owners and executives. It's not something that's so far out of your reach. It's something that many people in America can and do on a yearly basis, and they get there.
Yeah.
So don't think it's something that's not possible for you just because you see a video like this claiming you got to make $5 million to have real wealth.
And he's contradicting himself here a little bit too, because he said that other 6% that don't make $5 million a year are highly paid executives that have stock ownership in a company. Technically, they're business owners. Well, guess what? We all have the ability to be business owners by investing some of our money in the stock market. That's what it is. It's a public market to have ownership in companies. So if you buy an S&P 500 Vanguard index fund, you now own through that fund exposure to Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, you name it. And then it's really easy today to go to any brokerage account and have ownership in these companies as well. So it's all kind of semantics in the same thing here. The difference is most people don't stick with their investments. Most people make emotional decisions to get out of them and don't write it out over decades, and they make poor investment decisions.
Yep.
So he's 100% right on that. But the same way that these other people are accumulating wealth, we all have the same ability to do so today, because not everyone's going to have the time, energy, or skill set to start a business. In fact, the majority of businesses actually fail. So like some stats here, in the first year, 20% of businesses don't make it. After 5 years, 50% of businesses don't make it. And after 10 years, 70% of businesses don't make it. So only 30% are going to have a successful business after 10 years. And they're probably not going to make $5 million, the majority of them. In fact, we looked this up as we were taking a look at some of this data, is that only 0.1% of the population makes $5 million, right? Yeah, they're going to have to do something extraordinary to earn that type of money. Most NFL and professional athletes don't even make that type of money. And you know how small the percentage that population is, let alone to go above and beyond and do that for decades. So yeah, it should be no surprise that the mega wealthy people are the top executives and they own thriving businesses. If you're an engineer, you're probably not going to make $5 million a year. If you're a teacher, you're definitely not going to make $5 million a year, but you do have the ability to invest in the markets, to own businesses through those investments. And if you have patience, a disciplined investment approach, and decades of time, you can accumulate wealth, whatever that means to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing I would end with on this point is I just don't want people getting the impression that, oh, if you become a business owner, you're going to be making $5 million. A vast majority of businesses in this country are small businesses, right?
Yeah.
They're not these giant, they're not the Facebooks, the Amazons, the NVIDIAs that people are hearing about that, have gazillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Most businesses are, you go drive down the street. When you look at all those, all those small businesses you drive by in your neighborhood, do you think those people are making $5 million? No, most business owners are probably making, $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 if they're really doing well, right? So don't trick yourself into thinking like, oh, if you're a business, I got to start a business today if I want to make $5 million. It's like, no, you can absolutely take a tried true method. Most millionaires are probably people that just did it through working a 9 to 5, having a disciplined, consistent approach. Doesn't mean they're going to be the people that end up being worth hundreds of billions.
Yep.
But it's definitely a safer, more consistent, and probably proven track method to get there.
Yeah. Hey, here's a scenario for you. We just talked to a business owner the other day, making $500,000 a year, crushing it, and has a paid off vacation home, has a paid off primary home, zero debt, making $500,000 a year, and has full flexibility of their time.
Yep.
Would you consider that guy wealthy? Yeah. And he has a nice investment portfolio, owns a business, but only makes a tenth of what we're talking about here in this video. Is that guy wealthy by most people's standards? 100%. Is he flying around on a private jet? No.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So anyway.
Yeah. The starting running back on your local football team doesn't make $5 million. And everyone in your town knows his name. So just to show you how rare it is to make $5 million, there's not many of them out there.
Yeah. All right, let's get the next video here.
Everybody says not to finance a brand new car because it's a depreciating asset. But nobody says that a savings account is a depreciating asset. Just think about it. People say not to put your money into a car because the value of the car is going down. But nobody stops and thinks and says, when I put money into a savings account, I'm losing purchasing power. My dollar is worth less and less and less and less because my money is not even earning more interest than the rate of inflation. So the next time you pull up somewhere in your new car and somebody says, oh, what a dumb way to spend your money, ask them if they have a savings account and then call them a hypocrite.
Yeah, I love this take, right? And this is spot on. I don't really disagree with much of anything that is in this. And to put this into comparison of real numbers, is inflation today, at least according to the federal reports that are out there, is around 3.5%. So if your money in your checking account and savings account is not earning 3.5%, it is not able to buy the same things a month from now, a year from now, a decade from now as it is today. So in other words, if your savings account is not getting at least 3.5%, you have a depreciating asset that's there. Now, do we need money in a checking account for liquidity to pay bills? Yes, 100%. But at a certain point, your money needs to be earning more than that. And there is absolutely no excuse to not get 4% today, to not get 4.5%, not get 5% today, as of June 2024, at least here, right? So it is a no-brainer if you have cash lying around that you don't need to pay your bills this month, is to research and look for a yield online in a money market, checking savings accounts to get 4.5%, 5%. They're not hard to find.
Yep. Yeah. And, I feel like we've been shouting into the void about this for like 2-3 years. I mean, obviously all of our clients know this, but
I'm sick of hearing about it.
Yeah. But like we've been talking about this for like 3 years now with treasuries, CDs, money markets being at 4.5%, 5%. There is absolutely no way anyone who listens to us should be having 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand sitting in a checking or savings account at this point. Even if it's your emergency fund, that stuff can be readily liquid in a money market. You could easily get it out. There's absolutely no reason to not be getting that. If you have 100 grand sitting in cash, that's $5,000 a year that you could be getting just for free. If you got 50 grand, that's $2,500. If you got 25 grand, that's $1,250. That's probably, a week's paycheck for most people. Like there's no reason to not be taking advantage of this stuff. And, one tweet I just saw the other day, this guy talking about how people don't understand how much inflation's impacted them over the last few years. If you made 75 grand in 2020, you would need to be making $91,000 today just to have the same purchasing power. So you would need to, increase $16,000 in your salary. So if you're someone who's similar to that and, you increase those percentages of your own personal situation, you might realize like, oh geez, like I've been really losing a lot of purchasing power.
Yeah.
And the same goes for your savings. If you haven't been investing, you've just been keeping money, stacking away in cash, even if you're saving for like a house or something, like it needs to be outpacing inflation, because you should not be just losing money just because you're just being ignorant to what's out there.
Yeah. And I'm a kid that grew up in the 90s, and someone sent this to me the other day, is if your parents made $80,000 in the 90s, the equivalent today is about $225,000 that you need to make to have that same exact lifestyle. So you take that example that you just made over a couple year period and you zoom that out over like 2 decades, like, man, like 80 to 225 is a big deal. Now, like, what if we got another 20 years? Like now that if you make 225 today, you probably got to make $700,000, $800,000 20 years from now just to afford the same stuff. So if your assets are not growing and your burn rate is quicker than what you need to grow your assets at, you're destined for failure. It's just not going to work. You have to have your assets grow at greater than your burn rate and greater than what inflation is doing to give yourself a shot at being financially independent and secure in the future.
Absolutely. And the last point I would basically end on with this one is like the same way that we're always advocating for you to be investing, having your money grow because it's compounding in your favor. If you're just letting inflation eat away at it, it's compounding against you because that 3.5%, it's 3.5% this year. Then it's 3.5% on top of that 3.5% next year. It's going to continue to do that for you. Now, unless you think all of a sudden our government is going to stop spending and we're going to become a deflationary country, which is never going to happen. We will never experience deflation in this country. So there's absolutely no reason, even if you think like, oh, the government's going to fail. Like, I don't want to put my money in treasuries because the US is going to crash. Like, hey, if the US dollar crashes, we're all screwed anyway. So you might as well be getting
Play the game.
Might as well be getting the 5% that they are guaranteeing you on these types of things.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So at the end of the day, you need to keep an amount that's available in your checking and account for sure. But anything above a certain level that you need to pay a couple months worth of bills, you put it to work in some way, shape, or form, even if you're not comfortable with the market, to give yourself a shot at being financially secure.
Absolutely. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed this week's clips. We'll be back next week with another podcast. But with that, hope everyone has a fantastic week and send us your requests.
All right, we'll see you.